Hey everybody, it's Irene with BrainStormAcres. Like I say, the soil is moist. I am now going to put a minimum of 1 cup of water on each one of these little seedlings. I'm going to drizzle it in around. I'm probably also going to take the watering can and drizzle the entire top. I want this to soak in good. Now, if the water comes out the bottom, does that mean I've watered too much? No, not necessarily. And I'll show you why. I actually have a pot over here that's showing what I'm talking about. So let me slide this guy out of the way. So I have room, the final frontier. One of the hardest things for people to deal with when they're starting in pots is the problem of keeping your pots damp enough. Now, these are kohlrabi. And I want you to see down in here. Let's see if we can get this camera crammed in the plants. Can you see this gap here? That means the soil has shrunk slightly. If I pour a big bucket of water in here, what's going to happen to most of it? It's going to roll down the outside between the soil and the pot and wind up in the tray. Does this mean I've watered it enough? No, it just means I've watered the tray. You will see some of my trays have considerable amount of water in it, like that. That guy was watered yesterday. That is it's a muir lettuce, I think. No, it's not. That's a Adriana. I just watered these guys yesterday. They need fertilizer. See this yellowing? This is spinach. These guys need fertilizer. I did a very heavy pick the other day because I'd let them get too big and picked off most of the top. So this is what was underneath. If it didn't green up instantly, that means it needs fertilizer. And in this case, I will give it some 20-20-20 plus some micro boost to make sure boron deficiency is a major problem in spinach, and they won't be happy unless they get their boron, so we're going to fix that. These guys are obviously totally happy. These are Salanova, Sweet Green Crunch, and red oak leaf. These guys are also happy. The roof is leaking. It's not leaking, it's just dripping. It's condensing on us. These are Salanova, red oak leaf, green oak leaf, and there's water in the bottom here. Why? Because it flowed out. It's not going to hurt anything down there. Yeah, I'm growing a little bit of algae in there. Algae won't hurt the plants. I leave it in there. I try not to overflow. If I get too much water in there and it stands in there, like usually this happens. It dries out every couple of days, and that's fine. If I were to keep this all the way up to the top with water all the time, the bottom inch of that soil is probably going to get yucky in there, and what I mean is it's going to get anaerobic, which means there's no oxygen in it, and it will start to stink. And sometimes, like when you dump the pots out, if you were dumping it out for a reason later, say I was growing potatoes in there, that bottom will be really gross. If you had something like potatoes in there that were down close to it, it could actually make them spoil. With lettuce, it's not a problem. And normally I allow them to dry out. Like you can see, this guy's on the way to drying out. He's down really low. There's a little bit of water in there, but not much, just enough to grow some algae on. And I'm just not worrying about that sort of stuff. We're not a high-end, 100% sanitary greenhouse. We're a functioning home greenhouse. So I wanted to point out this issue here because this screws up a lot of people. You'll see in a lot of my, like there's a slight depression here. Why would there be? Because that's where I'm pouring my water. I can pour in my water, and if I'm concerned about that crack on the side, I can pour in my water like 2 cups, 3 cups, then let it sit 15-20 minutes while I'm doing something else, or at least till it drains down, and do that again. Do that a couple of times so that the soil itself is being moisturized correctly. You can really see that in some of the bigger cabbage pots. Let's see if I can get in here. The cabbages are taking over the planet. So, okay, down in here. See, there's quite a big dent in the middle there. And I will go in and I will clean off any bottom leaves that have yellowed and get them out of there. That's what will cause mildew and mold and stuff like that. Let's see, get him out of there. But with him out of the way, you can actually see all the way down here. There's quite a hole in there. And that gives me some place to pour water, and I will pour 2, 3, 4 cups of water in there, and then it will disperse through the plants. Now, it looks kind of soggy in there. It was watered just yesterday. But when you look at the saucer, you can see there's a tiny bit of water in there, but not much. And this is a hard balancing act to achieve. But you have to make sure your plants are actually getting enough water. Enough water to stay alive is different than enough water to thrive. And what we want is this. We want this jungle of happiness. I mean, check out this broccoli, right? Not bad. That happens to be Emerald Crown. This one is also, this is not Emerald Crown. I think this is Marathon. I will check. But, you know, happiness, cabbage. When I'm growing cabbages, you'll see them start to roll like this. And then as they get bigger and bigger, this center roll will get fatter. I can touch it and I can feel that it's still got a bunch of give to it. That means it's not a solid head. Now, some heads don't get particularly solid. This is Copenhagen, which should get solid. So, nowhere near that done yet. Let's see who else is in here. This is broccoli too. And there's a bunch of little florets in here. The center one's already been harvested out right there. And it's almost time to harvest these guys again here. It's putting off the side shoots. So this is Atlantis. See? It'll have lots and lots of little side shoots. And we've been eating from this bucket down here, which looks a little raggy, but we've been eating from this bucket since Thanksgiving. And you can see where the big first initial ones came off, and then I'm cutting farther and farther down, and this has put off another side shoot, and I have little florets here. Now, for a commercial grower, it's probably not worth holding it. But for me, what this is costing me is water. And right now, my water is all rainwater, so it's costing me the time and the space. So check it out. Those are going to be super tasty. And when I cut them, I'll actually cut them right down here. And we will eat those little leaves too, because they are also super tasty and they taste just like broccoli. They're not tough or stringy. Trying to eat this would be awesome. I mean, you'd have to like boil it for 2 hours and it probably would be still too strong and weird. But these little guys, oh, so tasty, so wonderful. And yeah, some of the plants don't look all that wonderful. It's been down in the 20s here, and in fact, I think it got a little colder than that a couple times, and I think that's what we're looking at here is frost damage. But you know what? The plant is still producing. So, yeah, this is not a fashion show. My goal is not to make better homes and gardens or something by having the most beautiful plants. My goal is to feed the two of us. And looking over here, you can see the cabbages. Okay, some of them look awesome. Some of them look a little less awesome. A couple of these guys got some frost damage. And that means I'm going to harvest them sooner than I plan to. Normally I would let these guys get much bigger. Let me see if I can get in here better. What I'm looking for is a head this size or bigger. And there's another one. They're just starting to show a little bit of damage. What I want to do this week is harvest probably everybody that's got this kind of damage. Now he's got a legitimate head to him and it's pretty solid, but he's not going to produce as good a head in the long run as if he didn't have this damage on him. I can live with that. I have more cabbage coming up over here. I have more cabbage in the seedling trays. So, you know, I got very enthusiastic with my cabbage this fall, and I'm very glad because I'm getting some monster cabbage. These are big and solid heads, and they're gorgeous. We're going to ferment these guys. We're going to ferment them. We're going to make sauerkraut with these, and having a bunch come off at the same time, my goal was to actually be able to get enough to come off at the same time so that we could do a batch of sauerkraut. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So let's get back to the pots here. Now, that guy has just been transplanted. I'm going to water him, but not right this second. You don't need to watch me water. These guys are already planted. This guy is not planted. This is where our jade cucumbers lived last summer. And because it's a big old pot and it's not in the best of shape, I don't want to move it too much. So I'm going to plant the rest of these little guys in there. Let me see what they say they are. This is a Brussels sprout. Oh dear. I have Brussels sprouts and let's see. Gladius. I'll have to look up Gladius. Brussels sprouts and I have not gotten along so far. I'd forgotten I was gifted Brussels sprouts. Okay. What I'm going to do then is I am going to plant Brussels sprouts are huge mongus. I am going to plant 2 Brussels sprouts in there. And this is a cabbage. And it wasn't labeled as to what variety it was, so she didn't know. There's obviously 2 of them in there. I'm going to cut off these little leaves that have some damage to them because they just don't look happy or healthy. And we'll get rid of them because we don't want any problems. So I am going to probably just, let's see, gotta think this one out. These pots, those 2 there, have both had brassicas in them before. That means cabbage family, cole family. Call it what you want, it's all the cabbage family. And what I was planning to do was not plant cabbage in there again. So I'm going to plant 2 of the Brussels sprouts over in here. Maybe 3. Maybe 3. That would solve my Brussels sprout problem. Now my big problem with these is I'm not going to be able to move that bucket well because the bucket is decrepit. Oh, this is a conundrum. I have to figure this one out. Maybe what I'll do is plant the cabbage in there instead and make this more portable. Or not. Let's see. It's only January. Okay, I got it. Brussels sprouts takes a long time. I will have to look up this particular variety because different Brussels sprouts take different amounts of time. Remember, we top up with potting soil. We add some Hoss Tools slow release. Now I have used other slow release fertilizer besides Hoss. Didn't work as well. It was okay. And if you don't want to order by mail, or if you don't live close to Georgia, you know, I don't have a problem with ordering by mail anymore. I used to try and buy local, but local has failed me too many times in the past 2 years. Actually, they failed me plenty of times before that too. This is not a heavy gardening area in comparison to some areas of the United States because it is a difficult area to garden in. So, I think a lot of people move here, try it, kill everything, and give up. There's 2 in there. Okay, moving right along. That was one of the problems my girlfriend had, is that they had planted like doubles and triples in a lot of the pots, and all of a sudden when we sorted them out, she was like, oh my gosh, you know, I have like all this stuff. What am I going to do with them all? She's like, you want some? I'm like, okay. If they had not looked healthy, I would have said no, but they did look healthy, so I was like, okay. Except now I'm looking at the fact that I have more than I've counted. I didn't realize there were 2 in there. So how am I going to handle that? I'm going to just continue with 3 in here and I'll find a place for the other baby. That's what we're going to do. All right, let's see. You'll notice I'm planting these beasties as far from one another as I could possibly get and still be in the pot. We now have Brussels sprouts, and we have pak choy. We have very dirty hands. We have a budget, so sometimes you can't get everything you want at the same time. But these were previously used for growing brassicas. Cabbage. And mostly cabbage, I think. There may have been a pak choy in here too, but they're all in the cabbage family. So stir it up to make sure there's no massive piles of roots. My recollection was that I had dug out the root bundles, but it's been a while since I did it. So rather than goofing up and getting in there and discover I had giant roots, rule number one, don't talk while you're fluffing up plastic. Trying to use up some old seed that kind of got misplaced. And you'll see me stop and do things when I'm planting because that's the way my brain works. So I had a couple of not good looking lower leaves on the pak choy, and I cleaned them off. Let's see how many seeds we have. Plenty. These are pelleted seeds. Whoa! The nice thing about pelleted seeds is you can find them when you drop them if you have a clean floor. I currently have a slightly messy floor, but little round balls still show up on the clean floor. Okay. These say that we want an eventual distance of 3/4 to 2 inches, depending on the root size desired. I'm going to put them about 2 inches apart. So there's a 2 inches apart. If I want to be real picky, I'll actually set one finger into the previous hole. I'll go around. It'll give me a decent spacing. This is not perfect. This is not precision. This is machine precision here. This is planting in a bucket. Then I'll step in about 2 inches, and I'll do the same thing. 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep. Now obviously these holes are a little deeper than that, but this soil is fluffy, so it's going to compact anyway. One in each. $23 seeds. Yes, I will keep track of that because these are older seeds. Now this says that it can take between 1 to 3 weeks. And you have to remember that because sometimes you're going, it's been a week and nothing's happened. It's been 2 weeks and nothing's happened, and you give up. Well, maybe you should have waited 3 because they tell you 1 to 3 weeks. This will be watered with a watering can. Now you'll notice I'm trying to not rinse the soil away. I'm going to flood it. Then I'm going to let it soak in. Today, this afternoon sometime, I'm going to come back and I am going to water it some more. That pot is not completely dry, but I want to make sure that this stays damp. I will also probably, starting tomorrow maybe, or tonight, one of the two, I will probably cover it with something. Carrots take consistent moisture and time. It is a little cool in there for them, but hopefully with any luck we won't be freezing, and it should do fine. So I hope you find this interesting. We are doing lots of stuff still. Oh, I should show you my little seedlings. I sort of pointed at them before. These are the little guys, my little seedlings that I planted. I'll get Henry to put the date up. We can look it up. And they are looking happy. They're not growing super fast. I would not expect them to. It has been chilly. We are sometimes getting up in around 60 during the day, sometimes a little warmer. The fans will go off when it gets up to 80, but that 80 is up there at the roof, not down here. And you can get quite a bit of difference between here and there. They do have heat mats on, 22.6 degrees and 71.9 degrees, essentially the same temperature, except that 71.9 is in Fahrenheit and 22.6 is in Celsius. In case you're wondering why I'm doing that, is I couldn't get that one to reset, so I just asked Siri what 70 degrees was, and that was close enough. I'm not trying to do super hot. I'm trying to keep them a little cooler. Sometimes people will tell you start them at 75 or 80 degrees. I find out they do just as well at 70, and I'm less likely to get shock from my plants. As I said, I hope you find this useful. Dust from potting soil. I should mention that. Someone contacted us the other day and said that when they use seed starting soil, they always went up a sinus infection. Or at least, if not an infection, at least like sinus headache and all that kind of stuff. I have the same problem. It's the peat moss. And I know a few years back there was an article that came out about you can catch stuff from peat moss. The only people who usually have problems with that sort of thing is people who work heavily in peat, like processing and all that other sort of stuff. But you may find that it irritates you. It makes your throat scratchy, makes your sinuses get funky. It definitely does with mine. I'm even careful usually about regular potting soil because regular potting soil frequently does have peat in it. And yes, the reason I had to stop because my throat is irritated from the peat. Anyway, what I recommend is if you're going to be doing a lot of potting up and things like that, wear a dust mask. It's just a sensible thing. It's no different than when you're using cement. You should be using a dust mask so you're not inhaling that. There's a lot of products that are used in construction and gardening and everything else like that you really should just wear a mask. And it's not a big deal. It's a safety factor. So if you find yourself getting snuffly, uncomfortable after you use potting soil, after you use seed starting soil, the seed starting mixes usually are heavier in peat than the potting soils are, but it depends on the brand, and sometimes I think the day it was made, because it seems like it's not particularly consistent sometimes for the regular potting soils as to how much peat they have in them too. Peat is great because it holds moisture, and that's why it's in there. But if it irritates you, just wear a dust mask. Just a sensible thing to do. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because obviously we're going to be doing tons more. We're working on about 6 different videos of various stages of coming and going right now. I'm going to be planting a few more seeds today, but you don't need to watch me plant. The same thing you've seen me plant a zillion times before. So until next time, bye. And don't forget, keep on brainstorming. I've got lists right now of seeds that I'm working on. Lists. Bye.